Okay, other good news. Birthdays and anniversaries this week. Roy Baldwin will turn 12. No, it's February the 12th. Happy birthday.
You didn't mean that. Say it like you meant it.
Happy birthday. Okay, Vicki and Larry Elsner, anniversary. Dylan Bunch usually sits right over there, has a birthday. Brad and Molly Johansson, Estelle Raymond. Okay, from our group. Also good news. We're going to announce it first here. We have new members to the church. Carrie and Julie Mooney. Welcome, welcome. They're coming to us from the East Ridge Church of Christ in Rockwall. So, Carrie and Julie, and we have our visitors again, Rodney and Nita. Welcome. Okay. All right. I think I got it laid out. I got chapter 9 notes here, chapter 10 here, chapter 11 here, in my book here. You know, I'm using the daily Bible in the chronological order. So, I've got a road map today. I've got to jump around because it's not in sequence like the Bible that you have. So, bear with me. Who remembers the movie from 1998, Primary Colors? Were anyone old enough to see it back then? Y'all are a pretty young group. Well, there was this young man named Henry Burton. Well, of course, right now, you know, you're seeing political signs. And people have a political team that goes out and campaigns for their man. So Henry is working on a campaign for a young man that he has a very charismatic personality. He has a promise of going places in the political world, and that was Governor Stanton. And as time went on, Henry's view of him his flame was going out and out and out because he was not quite the man that Henry thought he was. And just saw that he was just an ordinary, flawed man. And we've been studying about Solomon, and he achieved quite a bit. Building projects, his wisdom, wealth, territorial expansion, international prestige. In our chapters that we're looking at today, we will see a slow fade. Not a sudden fall, but a slow fade. And it's very gradual. He established some minor precedents that led to Israel's demise. Here's a quote: "Seeds of success are often in the soil of our success." So I'm going to start in chapter 1. Chapter 9, thank you. Keep me straight. I'm trying to talk and fiddle with the phone. We were driving to church this morning, and this car weaved. And second week in a row on the way to church. Come to find out, that person was driving and using their phone. But anyway, chapter 9, verse 1. I'm reading from the King James, this particular verse. And it came to pass when Solomon had finished building of the house of the Lord, and the king's house, and all Solomon's desire which he was pleased to do. In the King James Version, he used the word desire. Desire comes from a Hebrew's word of hepis. Hebrew. I might have pronounced that incorrectly. But it refers to a physical attachment. It could be in the areas of, we know what physical attachment is. But God's love to his people, our reciprocal of love for God, or even man's desiring a woman. Just keep that in mind. So, continuing in chapter 9, the Lord appeared to him for a second time. He said, I heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a temple for sacrifices. When I shut up the heavens, and I'm going to kind of be paraphrasing a little bit. When I shut up the heavens with no more rain, or devour the land, or plague the people, or we have financial problems, we have family problems, we have a death in the family, we have a list of people that we pray for. He tells us to do what? To pray. Go to him and pray. Humble yourselves. Seek him. Even in here it says of your wicked ways. Well, we have a covenant with Jesus. We know that we're sinful people. We're not perfect people. But if we keep him in sight, he will hold us up. It's kind of like an old barn that was leaning. It had a pole holding it up. And the farmer was asked one time, why do you have a pole holding that barn up? He said, well, it reminds me of my human self. And I need God to pull me up at times. But as for you, if you walk before me, as David your father did, and do as I command, and observe my decree and laws, I will establish you a royal throne. We've seen this before. This is the second time. If you don't do it, he tells us what's going to happen to his people. They will bring disaster upon the people of Israel. That was verses 1 through 9. Now looking at 10 through 14. Do y'all have a Chronicle Bible? You know, in each section of each verses, it gives you a little title of each section that's coming up, a group of verses. In this one, starts out verses 10 through 14 that Hiram is displeased. Why is he displeased? So it's been 20 years or so that Solomon is in his reign. We know he used Hiram to help him build the palaces and became a close associate. King Solomon gave 20 towns in Galilee to Hiram, the king of Tyre. Those 20 towns, if you know where Jerusalem is, if you can picture it in mind where Jerusalem, if you went north, basically due north, go west about halfway to the sea, you'll find the 20 cities, the area that he was given. And Hiram went to see for himself the towns that Solomon had given him. And he wasn't pleased. He wasn't pleased. He said, bro, this doesn't look like any better than West Texas towns without the Dairy Queen. So, he was very displeased. So, he said, what kind of towns are these? Can somebody tell me why Hiram had sent the king 120 talents of gold? I couldn't figure that one out. Any insight? Okay, but Hiram had sent to the king. But anyway, any other thoughts? Okay, we'll work that out. That's a question. He did. He supplied all that. It inserts here in this chronological order, the 2 Chronicles chapter 8. You don't have to go there, but it says at that time Hiram returned the cities back to Solomon. Verses 17 and 19. Building of cities. He also built up Tadmor in the desert. And all the stores, and all the fan. I got to turn this way. And all the store cities he had built at Hamath. He built up Upper Beth Horon and Lower Beth Horon as fortified cities. Here, with walls and gates and bars, all the store cities and all the cities for his chariots and for his horses. Whatever he desired, built in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and throughout the territory he ruled. We see the word desired again. Wait, what's on your mind, Mike? Did you have a thought? Okay. Desired. What do we see in that word now? Desired. Wanting? Wanting. Yeah, that's what he wanted. Earlier, he desired what pleased God. Is this giving us a clue?
God already told you.
Is this giving us a clue?
Sounds like some of us today.
Of all the things, she said, that sounds like us today. Over the past so many years, Yes, I accumulated. I have this storage. I had this storage a few weeks ago, and Susan and I went to it and said, well, all right. I went there for one box of books. I've given away hundreds of books. I came out of there with 6 boxes of books. I gave a stack to Gunner's dad, and I gave a stack, who did I give other stack? But anyway, do we need all this?
No.
We trashed, we took to get Goodwill, and then we have a few things left, like my mother and dad's trunk. It had in there Dad's naval uniforms, a few keepsakes. But the desire, it was his desire. Yes, in verses 20, it says Solomon used forced labor. All the people left from Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, so forth and so forth, that were their descendants remained in the land. He used them as slave labor. And at the bottom of probably verse 15, that's a combination of verses 20, 23, and 15. You see how they kind of combine these verses together? (9:24), Solomon brought Pharaoh's daughter up from the city of David to the palace he had built for her. My wife must not live in the palace of David, the king of Israel, because the places the ark of the Lord had entered are holy. Kings 26, we see Solomon built ships. Why did he need to build ships? This is on the shore of the Red Sea. Hiram sent his men, sailors who knew the sea, to serve in the fleet. Solomon's men, they sailed down to Ophir and came back with 420 talents of gold that they delivered to King Solomon. Once every 3 years, they returned carrying gold, silver, ivory, and apes and baboons. Why did they put that in there? Going back to 1 Kings chapter 4, it says, God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight. Let's see if I left anything out. He also had building projects in Hazor, Megiddo, did I pronounce that right? And Gezer. Hazor, which was in the northern part, it was the intersection of 2 major trade routes. Megiddo guarded the Carmel Mountains, which was an international coastal highway, and Gezer, 2 more trade routes from the coast to Jerusalem. He is expanding his area, he's protecting his area, and he's going to be collecting basically a tollway. Give me money. Solomon gained wisdom, greater wisdom than all the men of the east, and greater than the wisdom of Egypt. He spoke 3,000 proverbs in his songs numbered to 1,005. And he described plant life in the cedar Lebanon, the hyssop that grows out of the walls. But what else did God give him? gave him wealth and power. If you'll bear with me, we're going into Kings, verse 14. Kind of skipping around, but we're in 10. If you'll bear with me, Solomon received 666 talents, not including the revenues from merchants and traders from all the Arabian kings and governors of the land. 200 large shekels of hammered gold, 600 bekahs of gold that went into each seal, 300 small shields of hammered gold. Gold shield, the king put them in, the gold he put in each shield. He had the great throne inlaid with ivory and overlaid with fine gold. The throne had 6 steps, the line 12 lines, and it goes on, goblets and pure gold. We saw in previous verses that he had gained horses and chariots. It had slave labor. And John, what did you tell me just a few minutes ago about Solomon? He had a lot of stuff. He had a lot of stuff. King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all other kings of the earth. The whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put in his heart. There is no doubt about that. Year after year, everyone who came brought a gift, articles of silver and gold, robes, weapons, and spices, horses and mules. Even Kings 10:26 refers more to his horses, more money, more shekels. He had a lot of stuff. Is this what God gave him, or is this what he desired to add to his kingdom? Pam says his ego. Any thoughts? Now, we go to verses 'Well, the fan keeps on blowing my pages here. Now we go to chapter 10, verse 1. With the Queen of Sheba, when the Queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon and his relation to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. What kind of questions could it have been, Roy?
Okay.
What kind of questions could it have been?
Should it have been? My hearing aid's not working with your microphone.
Okay. What did the queen ask him? What could she have possibly asked him?
I don't know. She couldn't ask him anything because he's the wisest man on earth. Hard.
Okay. Darlene, Wendy, y'all are very your curiosity. What would possibly have been a question?
She could have been referring back to some of the biblical, like creation.
Okay.
Grass from the
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And how his people felt.
True.
At his home is really
Here's my 3 questions. Jakey, I'll give you a last chance. What did she ask him? No, we don't have any idea, but here it is. What's the square root of pi? Can God create a rock too large for Solomon to pick up? Could be. What about this? What is the airspeed of a coconut-laden swallow? But what did Solomon do? Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing too hard for the king to explain to her.
I was reading back and when he was having discussions with Hiram, and it was about why he might have given him those cities. So Josephus' account in the Antiquities says that they had this ongoing riddle thing back and forth, and that was part of their relationship. Like they were always testing each other's skills, and that Solomon had given him that as part of their deal about riddles. Is it possible that the Queen of Sheba was like, oh, if I riddle him and he doesn't get it, would I be gifted territories?
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. So Solomon answered all of her questions. Nothing was too hard for the king to explain. Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon in the palace he had built. Going back in roughly the later verses of chapter 10, the whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom of God. All right, what could we be missing here? What would be a talking point? Why are they all coming to him? What else are they seeking? Sure is wisdom. Is there one thing we might be leaving out? Wisdom of God. The wisdom of God.
One of the things that I think she may have had, she kind of dealt with a little bit when she makes this statement in verse number 8, happy are your men, happy are your servants, who can understand before you do your wisdom. I think she may have asked the same question that every employer asks, how do I keep my people happy? Because as a queen or a king, that was one of the things that, and we'll see later with his son, but keeping the people that are your subjects happy is a huge deal. We'll try to definitely make sure.
Seeking, again, knowledge there. And that's the verses right on. Because back when they made the dedication, we'll remember that he sent his people away happy and basically safe.
Well, one thing about it, he rebuilt all those cities and the infrastructure had gone downhill till he got there, so he put his people back to work. That's a positive in anything we do, is keeping our people busy.
We saw that in chapter 4 as governors in the precincts and just built his infrastructure. All right, good deal for Sheba. I think I'm ready for chapter 11.
Uh-oh, that's where he's gonna mess up. That's right none there did like foreign women. I want these old hometown girls. Move on to chapter 12 now.
Chapter 12. I don't have any notes yet on chapter 12. In my little gray gray section here. It says, if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. And just like Roy, let me quote Roy. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter. They were from nations of which the Lord had told the Israelites, you must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your heart after their gods. Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love.
Is that a lesson for us today?
Amen. A big lesson for us today.
What if he knew them all by name?
I don't want to go there. So, he had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and the wives led him astray. Verses 4 through 8 tells us about Solomon turns to idolatry.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely as David, his father, had done. He built on the high place detestable gods of Moab and for Molech. God's angry response. There was no downfall. The kingdom, for 20 years or more, had been peaceful, safe, everybody's going. But if the leader is going out and messing with other women, not having a good relations with foreign, like Hiram, when he gave them those 20 cities, didn't that kind of tell us that he was, Solomon might have been a little bit conniving in his purpose there?
He turned away from God. And that happens today.
It happens today because if the king's doing it and he sees the gods being built and recognized, what are the people doing? They're following along. They're following along. So what does God do? What does God do to Solomon? He gives him 3 adversaries. Hadad, Rezin, Jeroboam. And I'll let you go through each story in your own private time. But he gave them 3 adversaries. And this my note says go to page 689. Solomon himself falls prey to the same destiny which overtakes all men. Verses 42. Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. Then he rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David, his father. And Rehoboam, his son, succeeded him as king. So what's the talking points? We mentioned one. You mentioned one earlier, Brenda.
What was that question?
What's our summary? What's our conclusion? What's our talking points?
We don't know whether he turned away and went back to God, but we know he died because he sinned.
Okay.
David never did. He done some bad things, don't get me wrong, but he's still a man after God's own heart. Solomon turned
True.
away from God.
True. What about this area? Any comments? Over here. God keeps us strong. Strong? Okay, I didn't hear that. No, my hearing isn't.
Chapter 9, God told him, as long as you keep my commandments, stay faithful, everything's gonna be all right. And then, when he started following other gods, building these monuments to the other gods because his wives wanted him to, he no longer was faithful to God, and he lost the kingdom over him.
Yes, lost the kingdom.
God did what he said he was going to do.
Totally. That should have been in my notes.
You got, give me a call, you said it worked.
No, it works. Solomon's life is a warning that following Jesus becomes more difficult as we age, not less. This is from Revelation 11:15. Whoops. No, this one's from 1 John 4:8. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. This is from Revelations 11:15. The kingdoms of this world became the kingdoms of our Lord and his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. So as long as our God is sovereign and loving, Christians have a lot of reasons to have hope for the future. And Mike, the lesson's yours. Next week, my glasses crooked, chapters 12, 13, 14, and 15. We got to finish before the end of the month. Thank you.